Good morning, everyone. So, yesterday we learned about how to create a React application. So, we discussed about two techniques, how to use React in existing application and how to create a separate React application. And to create separate React application, we can create a full stack application by using frameworks. Frameworks like what uh, back-end frameworks and front-end frameworks we can use. But yesterday we learned creating a React application without any framework, only building a single page application. How do we build single page application environment? We saw that. I showed you the process, how to create a React application. For that, I given some commands. You have to follow the same sequence. You able to create application created successfully, right? So the application in the new version have some new additional things to implement. Whatever I given you the steps you have to follow. If you miss any step of configuration, installing, application will not successfully run. So follow the steps. First step, you have to configure NPM for legacy peer dependencies. Second, create a new React application. Third, install CJVM. So you have to install the validations. I given all the commands, you have to follow them. And yesterday I explained the high level flow of React application. How application starts, how application works, we discussed the flow, right? Next, today, after understanding the flow, how the application starts, we discussed that part also. The flow of application, which page starts, which component works, everything we learn. Now we are going to discuss two concepts. Component in a React application. We are going to discuss about component in React application. Already we discussed about the component in our multi-page application. In multi-page application, we learned how to create a React application, React component. We discussed creating function and all this. Now, in real-time environment, when you are developing a React application, when you are designing a component in a separate application, what is the environment and how it works, we will see today. So first thing, component in React application. Yesterday we just created one login JSX temporarily. But in reality, what is the concept you need to know is every component in React application comprises of three files. Every component contains three files. What are those three files is, one is JSX, another one is CSS, another is we have a test.js. Test.js. We have three files for every application. For every application, for every component, we have three files. One JSX file, another CSS file, another test.js file. In real world development, when we are building a component, every component have 3 files. Last time when we created a component, we just created a component using a function in a script area. But in reality, we have 3 files, JSX, CSS and test. Actually, we know already. So .jsx is for designing the markup. So, or you can say presentation. So component related design, its presentation is created in which location we do that in JSX. It also contains the logic. That means you say application logic. That means application related logic also kept inside JSX. JSX contains two things, the design and the logic. Application logic means on button click what should happen, on drop down change what should happen, on radius change what should happen. All the functionality of your component also written in JSX. So JSX comprises of two things. One, the design, another one, the functionality. It contains two things. You know CSS already. .css comprises of styles. All the styles are written in CSS file. We have to design one CSS for styling. Another is test.js, test.js or spec.js. So it comprises of test cases which are used to test the component functions and the UI. Component functions and user interface can be tested by using a test file. Every component will have a test file. In the test file, we write the test cases. What is testing and why you need testing? In software technologies, what is testing and why we need testing? Testing is required not for checking errors. That is called error handling. Finding the problems, fixing the problems, that is called as debugging. That is not testing. Testing means we have to verify whether the design and functionality that we created is matching with the client requirement. Client asked to design us with certain functionality and certain design. And our developers are designing, but something is missing. Client asked something, but we don't have that in the design. Client asked that I want a color green for this heading and you given some red. Then your application fails testing. Testing means checking whether the client requirements and your developer design both are matching. If what we designed is not matching with client requirements, then it is not approved. Then it is not approved. You have to design to match the client requirements and we need to test. For that, we have separate testing frameworks. And testing you will learn as last concept. When you finished learning, designing, developing, as a last concept, you will learn how to test. For that, we need separate testing frameworks. So test files can have test.js or spec.js. That depends on framework. We call them as test specification files. So in a React application, when we add component, usually every component have 3 files. For example, yesterday we created one component. Suppose we created component login. Login dot what? JSX. Login dot CSS and login.test.js. These are the three files for every component. And it is not mandatory because you already learned that in a HTML page, if you want to use styles, you can write styles inline also. You can write inline, you can write embedded, you can write in external file. So if you want a separate external file, then you can write by using what? CSS. Otherwise, you can directly write inline also, right? So every component when we design in our React application, it will have three files. Not mandatory to have these three files. In that one file is mandatory. What is that file? JSX. JSX is mandatory. Let's create and see how this works. So we will go to our project. Yesterday, we created one login component, and that was simple login component. I just used only one JSX and I designed. But in reality, how we design a complete perfect for real time is go to SRC folder, make sure that all your component files are kept in only SRC. In SRC, I will maintain a separate folder. I will give the name as components. Now, once I give the name components, here I will keep all my components. Because a React application contains lot of things like components, services, hooks. For everything, we keep separate folders. Traditionally, in React projects, we maintain separate folders because React application contains so many things. In that, you are first learning about some components. So we will keep a separate component folder. In this, we can add components. And every component have three files. So better to maintain a folder for every component because every component have three files and you put all of them in one folder. It is very much confusion. So we will create a folder for component. Suppose I am adding a new folder. I will give the name register. Register is a folder. Now in components, we have a register folder and I'm adding that new folder here. In this folder, we will add three files. Let's add the first file and that file is register.jsx. I will add another file register.css. I will add another file register.test.js. These are the three files we are adding. So this file is optional. It is not required. So these two CSS also optional. So this is mandatory. We need to have this. Okay, let's go to JSX and we will create some interface. Already we learned we have to use export function and the function name. Function name is what? Register. And you have to follow the rules of component. Component name must start with uppercase letter. All these basics you need to follow. And it should return JSX element. I will create a div. Inside that, I will create a form. And inside this, I will keep a heading, some register user. And I created some data list, data term, some username. And we have a text box. Just roughly, I am creating a simple user interface first. So username, password. So this is type as password. And we have some email like this we have. So this is some email and we have mobile. Okay. So here we are adding a button and button is some submit register button we added. Now this is the button this is the register we are having, and we want our application to start with this. If you want your application to start with this, where to set that? Yesterday we learned which location? Index.js. In index.js, first you have to import. Import. What to import? Register. And it is present in components folder. In components folder, there is a register folder. In that register is the component. And we will use that in the startup. I will remove login and I will keep what? Register. Now we will run the application. npm start. npm start is to start your application. Remember, you cannot run just like you learned your HTML websites, like right click, open with server. That will not work for React application. For React application, to test anything in React, it is mandatory to run npm start. Without npm start, you cannot run a React application. Okay, now you can see the register is ready. We want some styling for this. We want to add some styles. So here, let's go to the CSS file of register. We will go to register CSS file. In this CSS file, we will add some styles. For example, in the register JSX, here this div, I will give a class name. Class name I given as, suppose I given the class name as form container. That is the class name. Now here I need to apply some effects to that form container. And how to access the class dot form container. Here important is, generally in CSS you learn selectors. You learn selectors, type selector, ID selector, class selector. Am I right? You should not use type selectors here. You should not use type selector. Type selector means, suppose I want to apply effects for a form. We can write form. Am I right? I want to apply some effects for heading. We can write heading. Don't use type selectors in CSS of component, because when you use a type selector in one component, even you are using in that component, it will affect for all components. That means in another component, there is heading 3. It will work for that. That means a type selector in CSS of a component is going to apply to all components. Even you are not linking, it will work for all. So don't use type selectors much until or unless you want an element in the same way across all components. If you want an element in the same way across all components, then you use type select. Otherwise, you always use class ID selectors. Don't use type selector. So I'm not using a type selector. I'm just using a class selector, and I will use display flex, justify content center, align items center, and I will use as a, suppose what else we will give as height as 100 VH. You know, it is viewport height. Now, once you define these styles, those styles are not working here. The styles are not working because you need to link the CSS to your component. And this is not a HTML page to link. Then how you link a CSS in component is by using import statement only. By using import statement. Import which CSS file? CSS file is present in the same folder. To access same folder, we have to use /. In that, what is the file name? Register.css. That's, you can import multiple CSS also. It's not necessary that only one CSS will be there for a page, you know that already you can have multiple CSS. But usually we maintain only one CSS for a component, everything we keep inside that. You want, you can add multiple also. Now it is ready. And you can see it is going to apply that effect here. So what is the container here? So the form container, so register.css. And here we are giving form container. So it will get the center alignment and display. Here it is having those effect. We want the styles. Let's go here. For this form, I will give some class name. And the class name I am giving here as the class name is form. That is the form class we are having. Form register. Okay. Now let's go to CSS. Here I am using form register. And I set some border 1 pixel solid gray. Padding as 20 pixel. Some box shadow 2 pixel, 2 pixel and 2 pixel gray or black. And you can see that this will be applied for the form. That means we are applying the effects, configuring the effects with style. So how do you write the styles and how do we use the styles for a component? That is one basic thing here first. So many other concepts will come, we will see. Initially, how you link the CSS to JSX. So here another point you should know. CSS files are linked to components by using import statement, That means suppose we have login.jsx, in that we have to use import dot slash and login dot css. That's how we import. So one important note is always use class and ID selectors for styles in component. You have to always use class and ID selectors for styles in component. So type selector applies effect to all elements across all components. That's one problem you will face. That means many people come with a complaint that, sir, in CSS of my component, I designed one effect, but it is working everywhere. It is working everywhere in another component also it is working, but in that component I haven't written it. If you are using type selector, even you don't use for any component, it will work everywhere. So it is going to implement everywhere. So always better use the class and ID selectors for selecting elements and applying effects. So this is the process of using styles in our page. And I am not teaching you any CSS here because those all you have to learn already in HTML. Here we are just learning how to link and how to use the CSS. So design a component and define some styles for that component. There is another technique we learned. What is it? Another technique is, instead of manually writing, we can implement third-party libraries and use them, like Bootstrap, like Tailwind, like other libraries. Let's see how to enable Bootstrap for this application and how the Bootstrap concept works. How to enable Bootstrap for this application. Let's see. To use Bootstrap in this application, what you have to do is, so first I will give an example here. First point, what you have to do, go to src folder and add a new folder for folder by name components. Next step, what you have to do, add a new folder for register. So, and add following files into register folder. What are the files? Register.jsx, register.css, register.test.js we are adding, but we will not use that now. So later I will avoid adding this. I just showed you how to use the test file. For that you need testing. You need to learn testing. We have testing frameworks enabled in React. Those frameworks will allow us to write test cases and test the application, which you will see later. How do you test the application? Initially, you add these files into the project. Now, what I written the code, I will copy that and I will share in the notes. You all people have the drive link now, right? Register.jsx. I will copy this one and another one is register.css. These two code I am sharing with you. This is by using our custom CSS. Our own CSS we are using and applying some effects. Let's see how to use third party to make the designing and development fast. How to use the third party is Bootstrap. How to use Bootstrap in a React application. Let's see that. So next step, we will see here, enable Bootstrap for React application. How to enable Bootstrap for React application. We will see how to enable Bootstrap for React application. As I already told you, React is a very high-end front-end library for building UI, whether you are .NET, Java, PHP, Python. You will not get calls from any company in the world without mentioning Angular or React like technologies in your resume. No chance. You will not get any calls. And a person like developer in Java, .NET, UI, full stack everywhere must have very good experience in HTML, CSS and Bootstrap like things, because React is a very high-end front-end designing. You cannot crack interviews or you cannot get a job by mentioning that I know little bit CSS, little bit Bootstrap. You need to be good in the front end as a React developer, because React developers are high-end front-end developers. That means we expect that they design great user interface. And for that, these all are mandatory, because people with the knowledge of HTML, JavaScript, they come and learn these React courses and they tell that, sir, I know little bit CSS, little bit JavaScript. So little bit, you are not eligible as a React developer in company. You need to have a full knowledge of HTML, CSS and Bootstrap like concepts, right? So let's see how to enable Bootstrap. Later we will use more. We will see how to use other libraries also. So how to enable Bootstrap? First, you have to install Bootstrap from terminal. And you have to install npm install. One is Bootstrap, another one is Bootstrap icons, and save. After that, you have to go to index.js in src folder. You have to go to index.js, and here you have to import. You have to import the bootstrap related files, and where it is present dot dot slash node modules, in that what bootstrap icons, you know the path, font, in that what bootstrap icons dot what css. This is one file. What is another file? Node modules bootstrap, in that dist, in that css, in that bootstrap dot css. These two files you need to link. Another is, bootstrap have functionality also, and for the functionality we need a javascript file. So what you have to do is you have to import bootstrap as bootstrap. So bootstrap from bootstrap, but this is optional. This is not mandatory. This is optional. So this is optional. It is not required every time. You have to import bootstrap as bootstrap from bootstrap. This is for logic and functionality of bootstrap. Bootstrap have a lot of functionality that comes from a JavaScript module, and that JavaScript module is a bootstrap. So you can import bootstrap as bootstrap from bootstrap, or you can just import bootstrap from bootstrap, or this is not mandatory also. I will show you here now. Let's see. Let's go to our project now. Current in register, what we are doing is, in register we are using the custom styling. Now we will use bootstrap in this and see. So what we are doing here, I will disconnect this CSS. When I disconnect this CSS, now the style is normal. Okay, let's install bootstrap. You see, in one terminal, already your application is compiling. Don't stop this. Leave it in the background and open another terminal. You click this plus mark, one more terminal will open. That means in one terminal, the app is running. In another terminal, you can run your commands. In this terminal, we will run npm install what it is, bootstrap icons and save. It is installed here. Once the bootstrap is installed, we need to enable bootstrap. Bootstrap is installed successfully, but you see in the UI there is no change. So let's go to index and link the bootstrap. Here there is no order in linking. You can link anything anywhere you want. So already there is a CSS there. I will link import dot dot slash node modules bootstrap dist css bootstrap dot css. That is one file. Another is node modules bootstrap icons. In bootstrap icons you have font. In that bootstrap icons dot what css. I linked these two files. Now your page is ready to use bootstrap. And see, through bootstrap I want to apply some styling. Let's see how do we apply through bootstrap. I will go to register, and here I will remove these classes because I am not linking that CSS. Now what I will do, it is normal. Here I will use deflex, justify, content center, align, items, center, that is actually Bootstrap classes, and it is going to apply that. And for the form, I will use margin top 4, padding 2, and border some secondary, and we are using radius rounded, and rounded 1 or 2, and you can see it will be in this way. We want more padding. I will just give the padding 4, then it will get the more padding for that. And for text boxes, I am using class. These are Bootstrap classes. Form control. Form control is a Bootstrap class for text box. I am using the same class for password, the same class for email, and for mobile. For button, I am applying the class name BTN warning W100. It is going to apply that. Now this is a form designed using Bootstrap. That's the form designed using Bootstrap. Bootstrap have several effects also. You see, what I will do is, for this div, I am also using alert. I am also using alert. Or for form, I will use it. For form, I am using alert. Alert, I will give as warning. And automatically it will come like this. And I will use alert dismissible. Alert dismissible. And in the register heading, I will put a button, and button will have a class BTN close. Then the button will be here. I can use this button anywhere we want. Dismissible. Dismissible. DIS. Okay. Dismissible will make the button automatically right side. Now I want to close this button. On close, it should work some functionalities and all. That means usually what we do is, for this button, we will apply data BS dismiss is equal to, it should dismiss alert. Data BS dismiss is alert. Usually this close button has to close. But actually it is not closing because our JavaScript is not added here. Means we need to add the JavaScript functionality into this. Because the functionalities depends on what? The functionalities depends on JavaScript. Here we need to import JavaScript also. How do we import? We have several techniques. Import what? Bootstrap. From where? From where? Bootstrap. You can import Bootstrap from Bootstrap. There are so many techniques, as I told you. You can see it says it is unable to resolve this module. Because why it is unable to resolve the module is, actually Bootstrap requires another file called Popper. So Popper is another file for Bootstrap. This we need to link. Actually, we can have Bootstrap as Bootstrap from Bootstrap. This process also we can do. But we need some more files to link to add the functionality. Functionalities later we will see, because still we haven't learned any click events and any event binding. When we learn event binding, we will add the functionality. So we will not use Bootstrap functionalities now. We will use only Bootstrap for CSS. Functionality requires little knowledge on click events and all to learn. Once we learn those, we can implement the functionality. As of now, you don't need this data BS dismiss and all. We will implement that later. Initially, what you have to do, just implement the design. Icons also there. So we can use icon like class name. What is it? BI person fill like this. This is register user, and the symbol also will come. I am just making the form as W25. That means it will make the form little large. This is the basic design of creating user interface in React. In React, we design lot of user interface using custom styles or by using third parties like what? Bootstrap. Later, I will show you Tailwind like concepts, but you have to learn Tailwind CSS for that, right? But because you already know about HTML, CSS, Bootstrap like things in your basic JavaScript things. So I'm using Bootstrap here bunch. Later in companies, sometimes they ask Tailwind. In companies, they ask integration of SaaS like concepts, which you will learn later, not now required. Just we will stick to only Bootstrap and our own styles, how to design. I hope you understood. We are using two techniques. One is what? Custom CSS, we can write our own. We can use both. Our own we can write and we can use Bootstrap. Both combinations we can use. But two examples I am showing how to set up the Bootstrap and how to write without Bootstrap, right? So with the Bootstrap, this code I will copy. And you set up these files. After setting these files, this is optional. Don't link this now. Later we will see how to use it. Next, what you have to do here as Bootstrap not required, just Bootstrap. Later you will see how to work. Now one more is register dot what? JSX. I will copy this code. Now in this code, we are using all Bootstrap related classes. We are adding all the Bootstrap classes and working with the Bootstrap classes. I hope you are clear. So how to add a component and how to apply some style for the component. You write a separate CSS and link it, or you just use your Bootstrap related CSS coming from the Bootstrap styles. So these are two techniques we learned. So now adding component and adding styles for the component. Now the major concept in components is very important is data binding. This is the major part. Data binding is the main concept in React. So how data binding works? What is the concept of data binding? So once you know how to design a component and its user interface, now the first basic thing in React.js is data binding. Actually, how data binding works in your JavaScript and React. For that, what are the changes we will see? What is actual data binding is nothing but, for example, you have a page. In this page, so we have a button, and what should happen here is, so we have some heading. We have some heading. Now, what we want is there is a value, some title, and some welcome. Now, this title must be displayed inside this heading. When it should be displayed is at the time of loading the page. At the time of loading the page, we want to collect value from a source and we need to update to UI. We want to display in a heading. We want to display in a paragraph. We want to display in a text box. Somewhere we want to display. Then in JavaScript, what to do? This is data binding. Data binding is the process of accessing data from a source and binding with the UI elements so that user can see it. And why you are doing that? Because whenever the value changes in the source, it should update in the UI. That means every time the value is not same, it will be changing. That is the reason we are storing in a source and we are binding with the UI. How JavaScript will do this? How JavaScript is going to do this? In JavaScript, usually first you need to write an event. When to bind? That means what you do? You write a function like what? Body load. And this body load have to collect the value from the variable and attach to the heading. That means usually what you do, document dot what, query selector, which one, heading dot, you can use text content, inner HTML, inner text content is coming from where, title. And when this body load should work, body on load is equal to, what is it, body load. When body loads, this function will execute. It will collect the data from the source and binds with the UI. But in React, it is very simple. In React, it is very simple. It's very, very simple. How data binds in React. For example, you see here, this register user is a title heading. I am removing this. That means the title is empty now. Title we will decide to bring from a variable because the title will be changing. When customer register, then customer register will come. Use admin register will come. Title will be changing, different. Then what we will do is, in the function, we will declare a variable. Variable name is what? Title. In title, what is the data? Suppose admin register. Okay. Now I want this title to display in heading. Earlier we have to write events, we have to write documents methods, DOM methods and all. Now simply a binding expression curly brace. In that binding expression, you just access your variable. What is variable? Title. That's it. It will bind that and it will display. No DOM methods, nothing. That means get element by ID, tag name, class names, nothing. Just access that value and display. And for that, actually, you learn JavaScript have a binding expression. In JavaScript, you learn data binding expression. In backtick, when you are writing a string, how to bind the dynamic values, dollar and curly brace. This is data binding expression in JavaScript. In React, data binding expression, simple curly brace. This is JavaScript data binding, and this is just React data binding. That means we can bind any value dynamically to this. Now, whenever the variable changes, it's like admin register, customer register, then automatically it is going to change. Right? So I'm giving some user register, then it is going to change according to. So data binding is very, very simple. We can access the data and we can bind to the user interface. You can bind to the user interface. So currently I want, suppose, a variable called uname. Uname is username. I entered some John underscore some NIT. I want this username to be displayed in the text box. Then just go to text box. Text box have a value na. To the value, you put a binding expression. From where the value is coming, uname. It will bind that value there. Earlier, we have to use document get element by ID, the text box, and get the value from the variable and assign. Now it is very simple data binding. But here so many issues are there and so many techniques and points, rules we have to learn. What are those? We will see. First, what is data binding? It is the process of accessing data from a source and binding to the UI, any UI element. And for that, we just need a binding expression. By using binding expression, we can bind. There are no DOM methods required. We don't need to use any DOM methods. This is all virtual DOM related binding. So here, the first concept is this. Data binding is the process of accessing data from source and binding to UI elements. Data binding is the process of accessing data from source and binding to UI elements. Actually, data binding is classified into two types. We have one-way binding and we have two-way binding. Two types are there. And what what is one-way binding and what is two-way binding? One-way binding and two-way binding is nothing but the concept is we have a variable, username is John. We are binding this to text box. How do we bind this to text box? So we have input type is what? Text. And the value is equal to, it is what? Uname. Now here, the point is, this value will be displayed here. That means now the value in text box will be what? John. Now this is called one-way binding, accessing data from the source and update in the UI. If I do any modification in the text box, that modification must be updated back now. That is called two-way binding. That means one-way binding is accessing from the source and displaying in UI. Two-way binding is identify the changes in the UI, and if the value is changed in the UI, update back into the source. This mechanism is called as two-way. And do you know what React says? React says that React supports one-way binding. And it is a good feature for React. That means in React features, one of the main feature that it says about React is we have one-way binding. What you are talking, you are saying that any modification in the UI, you will not update back into the source, and you are saying that it is a great feature of React. Understood, huh? Right? Angular says that we have two-way binding, that is our specialty. React says that two-way binding is not great, this is our specialty. That means iPhone people say that I will not give you a 3mm audio jack. You have to listen to only Bluetooth. That is our specialty. And even a 1,000 rupees phone have a 3mm audio jack. Now who is good? Both have their own abilities and issues. Through an audio jack, through a cable, when an audio is transferred, it has to convert the audio and send the audio. It will be not true audio. And these people say that we will transfer through Bluetooth, it will be a better audio instead of wired, because wire causes issues. That means the point is they have their own problems, their own issues will be there. React says that we support only one-way binding. Two-way binding, support one-way binding means what? They will allow two-way binding, but not internally. Two-way binding we have to explicitly add. But many technologies implicitly they have one-way binding as well as two-way. And React says that we have only one-way binding, and that is our specialty. What is your specialty of one-way binding? You are accessing the data from source and displaying, and you are saying that any modification will not update back. But we can update, but for that explicit logic is required. Explicit logic is required. Internally, it is not supported. In that case, what happens now? In that case, what happens? Suppose I am changing, you see, I am changing the value here. I will display the value somewhere below also. Here I will put another data definition. Here I will put the value. What is the value? Uname. That means uname is shown in two places. That means it is coming from a variable and displaying here. It is coming from a variable and it is displayed here. Any modification performed in this, it should update back and it should reflect here. Na? Right. Now you see, I click inside the text box. I am trying to type something. It's not working. It's like read only. It's not even allowing to type. It is read only. And this is what React's special feature. What do you think? It is special feature? Of course, it is a special feature because it will not allow accidental intentional changes. That means it has little bit more security in UI. That means accidentally, intentionally, if anybody tries to immediately change some value, by default, it will not work until or unless React application wants it. Understood? In two-way binding, even the application don't want, if anybody make the changes, those changes will be reflected. In one-way binding, even you try to change, it will not change. It will change only when it wants to change. That means explicitly we have to write a logic saying that don't allow to change username, but allow to change password, but allow to change email. That means we can put restriction in such a way that only some elements allowed to change and other elements will not. This technique of React is one-way binding. That means will two-way binding work in React? Two-way binding work in React, but not implicitly. That means internally it will not work. Explicitly you have to implement. That means React supports one-way binding implicitly. Implicitly means internally. It will not support two-way binding implicitly, but two-way binding can be used explicitly. That means you have to externally write the logic and implement it. So what is the speciality of this one-way binding? That means what is one-way and what is two-way binding? React supports one-way binding. React supports one-way binding. So one way is secured and will not allow accidental changes in UI elements, in accidental changes in data from UI. That is one of the key feature. However, you can implement two-way binding using explicit techniques. So many technologies that say that we support two-way binding, they internally implement it without writing any logic. That means, do you know Angular like technology says that we support two-way binding, and React says that we don't support two-way binding. And the technology which say supports two-way binding, what it will do is when you make any change without writing any event, generally we have to write event na, on change, am I right? Without writing any event, it will update. That is the speciality of two-way binding. That means you don't need to write any logic. It will automatically identify the changes and update back into the source. Update back into the source. So React supports one-way binding. You can implement two-way binding, but it requires explicit techniques. External techniques are required to implement what? Two-way binding. So we will see two-way binding, how it happens later, how it works and how it happens later. First, in the data binding, There are two techniques. One is one way, another one two way. And what is the default React ability? One way binding. What is one way binding? Accessing data from source and updating in UI. What is two way binding? Accessing from source, updating in the UI, identifying the changes in UI and updating back into the source, right? And React don't implicitly support it. Explicitly, we have to implement using various techniques. So that is the point about binding. Now here, how it is binded? React uses a data binding expression, the curly brace. It uses the data binding expression. So this is the data binding expression. Syntactically, so we have a value, and if you want to bind to any paragraph, just uname along with some text like hello. You can simply bind like this. You can simply bind your value anywhere you want just by using a curly brace. And if you want to attach this to elements like text box and all, then you have to use what? Value. So like this we bind. We have to bind like this. Just a binding expression is used, and through that you can bind the values. You don't need any do methods. Get element by ID, query selectors, they are not used here anymore. And now so many important points are there. As of now, for a component where I stored the variable, where I stored the data, for a component where I stored the data, I stored the data in a variable. I stored the data in a variable, but this is not recommended. It is not recommended to store data for component in variables. It is not recommended to store data in variables. Why it is not recommended? Because you learnt in JavaScript have a class, and JavaScript class. So a variable is not allowed in class as class member. You know this? Variables are not allowed. In a JavaScript class, variables are not allowed as class members. Data must be stored in a property, right? Generally in JavaScript classes, you learn that concept. And why variables are not allowed in a class? Because variables are immutable. And immutable means their state cannot change. So you cannot store variable, we cannot use variables for storing data in a class. So that is general JavaScript you learned already. So same thing, you should not use variables for storing data in component. As of now, I am storing and showing you, but that is not the correct process. Variables should not be used. Then variables, why we should not use variables? They are meant for only few reasons. We will discuss that. Why we should not use? Because variables are what? Immutable. Immutable means they cannot change their structure. They cannot change their structure. So then how to store data in a component? So this is another important point. So one important note is, do not use variables for storing data in a component. So variables are immutable. Variables are immutable. So you should not use variables for storing data in a component. Then how do we store data? So it is always recommended to store data to store data using state in component. It is always recommended to store data in state. You have to maintain a state and you have to use the state. And in JavaScript, you learn state management. What are state management techniques of JavaScript? Local storage, session storage, cookies, query string. These are all state management techniques of JavaScript. You learned, right? These are state management techniques. And why you need a state, where you have to use the state. These are all JavaScript things you know. So you have to use state for handling the data. Why you need state? I will tell you a simple overview. That means we are saying that using variable and storing the data is not good. That means don't use variables for storing the data. Then how to store the data, we will see. Why we should not use variables? Variables are what? Immutable type. Then how do we store data and use it? So for that you need a state. So here first question is, the first important question is, so what is state? And why we need state? These are two basic things. What is state and why we need state? Actually, you already learned this concept in JavaScript. Web applications use HTTP as protocol. Am I right? And HTTP is a stateless protocol. It is a stateless protocol. That is the problem. Every web application, any technology you use, you have to use for HTTP. Java, .NET, PHP, Python, so Node, all web applications run on HTTP. HTTP is a stateless protocol. What is the meaning of stateless protocol is nothing but, suppose we have a server and we have two pages, page 1 and page 2. Now what happens is, client is requesting, this is the user is requesting page 1. So user is requesting page 1. When user requests page 1, what server will do is, server is going to allocate memory for page 1. That means it is going to allocate memory. It will allocate memory for page 1. And it will load this page there. That means a memory is allocated for page 1 and all the transactions will happen in that page. Now user finished page 1 and he is moving to page 2. That means user is now requesting from after page 1, user is requesting another page. What is it? Page 2. Now what server is going to do is, it deletes the memory of page 1 and it will allocate a new memory for whom? Page 2. That means whatever values that you got in page 1 are not accessible to page 2. They are deleted. That means what happened in page 1 is not known to page 2. That is the normal nature of every web application. Every web application in every technology in the world, when it is using HTTP as a protocol, it is stateless. Stateless means it cannot remember information between pages. Now, this nature is called stateless. Stateless is good because server can manage its memory very well. Because once a page is finished, its memory is deleted. That's very good. That nature is stateless. But it is difficult for user. That means what happened? You are watching a website. In that website, there are 10 pages and they want you to log in and watch every page. Now you open first page. It asked your credentials, user ID and password. And when you verified the credentials successfully, then it will show page 1. After page 1, you want to go to page 2. It will ask your credentials again. That means imagine in a Gmail account, for every mail, you have to enter your password. That is stateless. Then what those people do? They implement a state management technique. What is state management technique? Remember information of page 1 and use in page 2, page 3, page 4. That is state management. And in JavaScript, what you learn as state management? Local storage, session storage, cookies, and query string. In JavaScript interviews, React interviews, it's a very common question. What is the question is how you transport data from one page to another. How you carry values from one page to another. And what is the answer? By using state management techniques. So component also requires a state. So that state is mutable and it provides data across requests. Variable is not mutable, it is immutable. It cannot provide data across requests. So always use a state instead of variables. Don't use variables for storing data. So use only a state. So technically, how do you define a state? How do we define a state? So HTTP stateless protocols. What does stateless means? It cannot remember data between pages. It cannot remember data between pages. So it requires various state management techniques. So we have state management techniques both client side and server side. Server side. When you are learning server side technologies like JSP, PHP, Python frameworks and Node.js, you will learn server side state management. When you learn JavaScript, you will learn client side state management. JavaScript teaches you client side state management and this teaches you server side state management. Client side state management is nothing but suppose you open your computer and log in with Gmail account. Then that computer can remember your Gmail account. Next time it will not ask you to log in. It will directly open your account. Am I right? That is client side state management. Client side state management. Why it is client side state management? You logged in into Gmail account in your PC and you haven't signed out. Now in another PC, if you log in Gmail account, open Gmail account, will it be already logged in? No, it is only for your PC. That is client side. Server side means it is available everywhere. Suppose you saved a credit card for transaction. Am I right? And when you log in into your account from any computer, that credit card is shown. Am I right? That is server side state management. That means it remembers your information on server so that on any PC it can provide you. It can remember only on your PC so that it will be only on your PC. On another PC it's not available. That is called as what? Client side. We have two types of state management, client side and servers. React also will be client side because React is a UI library. So it is client side. So how we have to maintain state and how do we define the state? Actually, to create state, this is very important. And what is the point about state is, so we will see React component state. React component state. Components are stateless. Components are stateless. Same because they are also using HTTP. Components are stateless. You have to configure state explicitly. You have to configure state explicitly by using React hooks. We have some React hooks. Hooks are nothing but actually we call them as React functions, and React calls them as hooks. Hooks are functions for a special purpose. Ready-made functions are present. React calls them as hooks. And what are those hooks? Use state is a hook. Use context is a hook. Use reducer is a hook. These are the hooks used for state. For state management, we use these three different hooks. So for memory state management, use memo is a hook, and use callback is a hook. These are all used for storing our data functions and use them across requests. And what is difference between them, you are going to learn. What is use context, what is use reducer, use memo, you have use ref. These are all important hooks, right? And in React interviews, the questions will be almost around these hooks concept. That means every interview will ask you about hooks. What hooks you learned in 18, what hooks are there in 19, what are the new hooks added. React interviews will revolve around the concept of hooks very much. And you will learn about them. So React related predefined hooks. These are all the hooks related to state. Use state, use context, use reducer, use memo, use callback, and use reference. We will see how to use them one by one. How do we work with them? Here, first point, for maintaining a local state, you need use state. That means you see, we are configuring a constant, and we are defining constant with a reference name. You know destructuring architecture, na? Array destructuring you learned. That's very basic of JavaScript. In JavaScript, you learned object destructuring, array destructuring, right? Here, everything will work with destructuring architecture of JavaScript. What is destructuring array? You learned destructuring array, na? Suppose in JavaScript, what happened? You have an values array. In this array, there is 10, 20, and 30. I want to store these three values in three variables. If you want to store all the three values in three variables, what is the destructuring technique? Where A, B, and C, three variables, into that assign the values. That is destructuring. Now A is 10, B is 20, and C is 30. This is general JavaScript destructuring architecture. You will learn in arrays, objects, everywhere, destructuring technique. This is JavaScript destructuring mechanism. So what happens is, here we have to use a constant in the square brace, destructuring architecture. We have to use a getter and setter. First, initially, we will put a reference. Uname is equal to what is that use state. And use state is a member of React library. It will automatically import. And in this use state, you mention what data you want. You initialize any data. What is the data? Suppose I am giving John. And data can be any type. You learned JavaScript primitive types, non-primitive types. Primitive type means number, string, boolean, null, undefined. This all comes under primitive. Non-primitive means array, object, maps, sets. All this comes under non-primitive. Now we are storing the data. This is stored under which reference? Uname. And you just bring and use it here. What is the reference name? Uname. And you can see it is going to get that and show. Suppose I'm giving this as what? So I'm storing another one. Constant title is equal to what? Use state. So here, so user register. And I want to use that here. Then here I need to define, so title. Then it will get the title and show. You should not use a variable. You should use a state. In a state, you need to configure the data and you need to access it. Directly, you should not use any variables. And here lot of questions are there. Questions like why you are using a const, why not var let, right? What is the reason of this? These type of questions will be asked. We will see how to handle them. But initially, instead of maintaining data in a variable, you have to maintain data in a state. Now we will see one by one detail about this. In this, first we are going to learn how to use a hook. What is that hook? Use state hook in React.js we will learn. What is this? How to store data? How do we access and display? And here lot of new things you will learn. How do we remember you learned binding of numbers, string, arrays in JavaScript. In JavaScript, suppose there is an array, you have to bring that array and display inside a drop down. You learned all the techniques. Huh? You have to write a lot of logic for that. But in React, everything is simple now. It is so easy to handle the bindings. How the binding works, we will see. That we'll see in next session. Tomorrow we will do that. Right? Tomorrow session, we are going to learn a very important concept of React, that is handling state and data. How data is handled and how to manage the state. Tomorrow we'll see that. Okay, right. 1 second, online people. Our admin will announce some.
Yeah, online students, I'm admin Manoj speaking. Guys, I'm audible. Just anyone raise the, yeah, okay, guys. Guys, and we change the link in tomorrow class. And who paid the students, UI full stack students, and please fill the Google form. Already I posted in WhatsApp community. Please check it, guys, once. And only React.js students also, please fill the Google form. And tomorrow we change the online link and we provide the login access for only who fill the Google form. Without Google form, we can't give in the access. So I posted one app team number. Can you save the Naresh Shetty app team number? 9293226789. This number was the Naresh Shetty app support team, guys. Can you please save the number Naresh Shetty app support 9293226789. Can you please copy this number Naresh Shetty app support team? And tomorrow we change the login access for you. And please guys, please fill the Google form. Our telecall support team today called to you. Please lift the call and please clear the process. Anyone have doubt, please send a WhatsApp message, guys. And tomorrow you have morning any login problem, before a half an hour you can send a message app support. Tomorrow morning you have any login issue, before half an hour, 30 minutes, before 13 minutes means 7 o'clock. Class will be started 7:30, 7:40. and you can send a message app support any login problem, any login issue, and you can send a message in app support team. And one more thing, and you can create a WebEx account with register mail ID. Whatever you given mail ID to me, that mail ID you can register and you can create a WebEx account. Without WebEx account, you can't access the classes tomorrow. Without WebEx account, you can't access the tomorrow class. Again, I'm repeating. Without WebEx account. Guys, WhatsApp community link will be blocked. Tomorrow day after tomorrow, we given the Google Classroom for official. Google Classroom, we will official tomorrow or day after tomorrow, we will give you. WhatsApp community was the block. So link will be not working. So tomorrow or day after tomorrow, we given the Google Classroom link. Yeah, guys, Google Classroom link I will share you. And you fill the Google form, automatically you can get the mail. Google Classroom link also we send the mail. Everything is processed to mail through. No WhatsApp in tomorrow onwards. And everything process will be mail through. Google Classroom and class, online class link, everything. Everything was in mail through. If you have any login problem tomorrow, join the class. You can message to app support Naresh IT. And again, I'm post the number. Can you please save the number? 9293226789. This number was the Naresh IT app support team number. You have any problem login issue tomorrow, before 30 minutes you can join the session. Before 30 minutes you can join the session. If you face the login issue, send a WhatsApp message this number, they will clear the issue. And without WebEx account, you can't join the class tomorrow. Today you can create a WebEx account. Whatever you given the mail ID to Naresh IT team, that mail ID you can use the WebEx account. I think UI students already have in WebEx account, no issue. New joiners who join the only React.js, who joined, please created WebEx account with your register mail ID. And tomorrow morning I'm busy with offline students also. So you have any login issue, you can message app support team. They will given the access to you. And tomorrow, not paid students. I think some students are not paid the fees. We can't given the access. So if anyone not paid the students, please clear the payment today evening. Guys, Google form link already posted in WhatsApp chat, WhatsApp community. Again, I am posting in chat box. Please wait 1 minute. అంతవరకు ఉంచు. Online students, please check one chat box. I posted Google form, and you don't worry. My telecalling team also in contact to you, and you can fill the Google form. It's not opening. You don't worry. My team was send the official WhatsApp message to you. You don't worry, guys. And tomorrow morning before the join the class, I'm busy with offline students also. offline students also 300 400 people is there, so I am busy with offline. You have any login issue, you can contact to app support team number. Already I posted app support team number in chat box. You don't worry. Again I posted in Google Drive also message. Again I posted to WhatsApp community also. You don't worry guys. Anyone facing login problem tomorrow or day after tomorrow, I give the videos also after only for 2 days. And these 2 days you can clear the issues. And one more thing, and you can check your internet connection before the join the session. If any internet connection is low, class will be not connected. So before you can join the session, you can check your internet connection. Internet connection is low, you can't join the session. So please check it guys before the join the session tomorrow. Tomorrow link will be changed. Today evening, who paid students, who done the fees in React.js and UI full stack students, you can get the mail today evening. My team was send the mail to you, the class link, and please check your mail. If anyone not receive the mail, please send a WhatsApp message to me today evening. Today evening after 6 o'clock, if anyone not receive the class link to mail, please message to me. I will inform to app support team. They will send the mail to you. And one more thing, again I repeating, without WebEx account create, you can't join the session tomorrow class. So please guys, tomorrow before the session, you can check your WebEx account. That mail ID you can use the join the class session. And everything is okay. Today evening we will get the link for tomorrow night. Yes. Yeah guys, who is this? Amol. Right guys, today evening we send mail. My team was send the mail to you, the class link. Class link means not meeting ID, the URL link. Automatically you have WebEx account, automatically you can open the WebEx app. The class will be open like in notification. Viresh, do you have main course material? Yeah, guys. Tomorrow, day after tomorrow, we created the Google Classroom link for notes purpose. So, sir will be updated everything in notes purpose in Google Classroom. You don't worry. Bhavan Kalyan, the link will not open. Yeah, you don't worry, guys. My team was send WhatsApp message to you. You don't worry. You have already in WhatsApp community. Please check in one WhatsApp community. Guys, anyone have doubt? Please send a message. Anyone have doubt how to, you have any login problem or class problem? And one more thing, guys, some students are asking doubt sessions. I will inform to faculty. Sir will be take the doubt session. You don't worry, guys. Anyone have issues, please send a message. You have no doubt, you can leave the session. You WhatsApp community or QR code doesn't know. Guys, Saho, the WhatsApp community group was the link was is blocked because the 600 people is there. Full stack Java students, why Sudhakar sir not taking? Guys, Sudhakar sir is taking classes UI full stack. If you want to sir batches, you can pay the fees. Full stack Java students, we started the class in React JS within 10 days. You will wait. Supriya Saho, you want to Google Drive link? You can send a WhatsApp message to me. I will share you. Guys, if you have no doubts, please leave the session. Guys, this course duration was a 60 working days. Sunil Kumar, this course duration 60 working days. Class will be Monday to Saturday. Maybe every Saturday sir will take the doubt session. No processor and no Shivam sir, please. Satya Kumar, you can contact in management once. Satya Kumar, again I am repeating. And you can contact in management. You can mail to support in support@nareshit.com. Okay, thank you, Satya Kumar. Thank you. Guys, you have no doubts, you can leave the session. Anyone have doubts, please message. Rahul, you can check your settings. I think your settings problem. And whenever message to you, and you can check in chat box. The chat box options is there. Everyone and paying list, faculty name also is the display, and you can select the faculty name, Sudhakar Sharma sir. I think your settings problem. Please check your setting, Rahul. Thank you. Remaining. Anyone? Anyone have doubts? Please send them and you can message in chat box. Okay, guys. Thank you. I'm leaving the session, and tomorrow this link will be not working, and my team will contact you. Don't worry, guys. Thank you. Bye.